It was supposed to be just another quiet morning, but within minutes, a mother was dead, her child was shaken, and a man stood in front of police trying to explain something that just didn't add up. Keith called 911 in a panic, saying his wife, Brandy, had accidentally shot herself while he was in the shower. He claimed she was still breathing but unresponsive. But by the time officers got there, Brandy was gone. And the story Keith was trying to sell? It was already falling apart. 2 guns were lying near Brandy's body. Not 1, 2. And Keith, who said he was in the shower during the shooting, was completely dry. Not a drop of water on him. Officers couldn't help but notice it. Something wasn't right. But then came the voice that flipped the whole scene upside down. Their 6-year-old son Rylan spoke up. He said he heard his mom scream before the shots were fired. A clear scream. That detail alone clashed with Keith's accidental shooting claim. When officers asked Keith why he didn't help Brandy, his excuse was almost bizarre. He said he was slipping on the wet floors. Yet again, he was bone dry. No wet footprints, no towel, no urgency. Nothing about his actions matched the story he was telling. Police weren't buying it. The inconsistencies were stacking up fast. And Keith's odd, emotionless behavior was just the beginning. He had no idea that buried deep in that house was a silent witness. One that had recorded everything he never wanted anyone to hear. Stay tuned, because in the next part, the truth comes crashing down in a way Keith never expected. And when police finally find the hidden recording, everything he tried to hide is exposed. The deeper investigators looked, the more the scene screamed that something wasn't right. 2 guns were found near Brandy's body, but this wasn't your typical case of a single tragic misfire. One of the guns had fired a rubber bullet, non-lethal. The kind of round used to slow someone down, to stun, not to kill. And the second gun? That one delivered the fatal shot, a 9mm round fired at close range. Now, here's where things start to unravel completely. The placement of the guns didn't match Keith's story at all. If Brandy had shot herself by accident, the weapons wouldn't have ended up where they were. It looked staged, too neat, too deliberate. Investigators began suspecting that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment tragedy. It was a plan. Then came the security cameras. Naturally, police wanted to review any footage from that morning. Keith, however, told them the cameras weren't working. He claimed they had been offline during the time of the incident. No explanation, no technical issue, just offline. That answer raised eyebrows, because who just happens to have their home security system fail at the exact moment something like this happens? Still, Keith stuck to his story. But it wasn't just detectives who were poking holes in it. It was the evidence itself. When the autopsy came back, the findings hit like a hammer. The first injury Brandy suffered was from the rubber bullet. It didn't kill her. It was likely meant to incapacitate her. The fatal shot came next, from just 3 feet away, execution style. That single detail ended any lingering doubt. The medical examiner ruled it clearly. This was a homicide, not suicide, not an accident. Someone had intentionally killed Brandy, and all signs pointed right back at Keith. His version of events crumbled in the face of forensics. He could try to lie. He could try to act shocked. But a rubber bullet followed by a close-range shot? That's not a tragic mistake. That's a calculated attack. But even with all of this stacked against him, Keith had no idea the most damning evidence was still to come. A secret recording he thought no one would ever hear. A chilling audio file that would flip the entire investigation on its head. Just when investigators thought they had seen enough, something unexpected surfaced. Surveillance footage from inside the home. Remember those security cameras Keith claimed were offline? Well, they weren't. Not completely. Some of the footage had been backed up elsewhere, and what it revealed was nothing short of chilling. For hours before Brandy's death, the footage captured Keith berating her, verbally tearing her down again and again. The insults weren't just cruel, they were threatening. At one point he shouted, "I'm going to kill you and go back to jail." It wasn't said in passing. It was said with conviction, with rage. Then he added something even more horrifying. "Maybe I'll make you take sleeping pills and cut off your expletive." The words weren't just abusive. They painted a disturbing picture of what Brandy had been enduring behind closed doors. But it gets worse. The camera didn't just capture what led up to the shooting, it caught what happened immediately after. Instead of trying to help his wife, instead of calling for help or performing CPR, Keith is seen scrambling around the house, hiding drugs. That was his priority. Not Brandy, not their 6-year-old son who had just witnessed a traumatic event, but his stash. When Keith was finally brought in for questioning, investigators expected some resistance. What they got was a complete circus of lies. First, Keith stuck to his original story. It was all just a terrible accident. But when that didn't hold, he pivoted and said something that made jaws drop. Maybe Ryland did it. Yes, he tried to blame his 6-year-old son. Then, as if that wasn't desperate enough, Keith tried a new defense, self-defense. He claimed Brandy had attacked him, and he only shot her to protect himself. But none of the evidence backed that up, and when confronted with the footage and autopsy, Keith finally started unraveling. He admitted he hadn't been in the shower. He admitted the cameras weren't offline. He admitted to lying about how Brandy was injured. Every piece of his story fell apart under pressure, and suddenly, this wasn't just a suspicious case. It was turning into a full-blown confession, sealed with his own words and caught on camera. But justice wasn't done yet. The final blow would come in court, when the secret recording was played for everyone to hear. The trial began in October 2021, and from the very start, prosecutors came out swinging. Their case was anchored by two things: the damning surveillance footage and the heartbreaking testimony of 6-year-old Ryland. His words, though simple, cut through every defense Keith tried to raise. He remembered the screams, he remembered the gunshots, and most importantly, he remembered that his dad wasn't in the shower like he claimed. The prosecution painted a clear picture. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't self-defense. It was a cold-blooded murder, fueled by rage and control. They replayed the clips where Keith threatened Brandy, where he yelled that he would kill her, and where he ignored her lifeless body to hide drugs instead. That footage left no room for doubt. The courtroom fell silent when the threats played aloud, echoing through the room like a warning that had gone unanswered, until now. Keith's defense team tried a desperate pivot. They labeled Brandy as a drug addict, suggesting she was unstable and dangerous, and argued that Keith had only acted in self-defense. But the jury wasn't buying it. The autopsy, the footage, the lies, none of it lined up with that story. And the idea that a woman shot herself with a rubber bullet and then stood still to take a fatal shot from 3 feet away? Not a single juror believed that version of events. Deliberations lasted less than 3 hours. The verdict? Guilty. First-degree murder. Keith was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There were no second chances, no loopholes, and no sympathy left for a man who had shown none to his wife. But even after the verdict, Keith didn't seem to grasp the weight of what he'd done. In a recorded jailhouse call to his parents, he complained about the 30-year minimum sentence, seemingly unaware that he had received life without parole. His concern wasn't about Brandy, it wasn't about Ryland, it was about himself. For Brandy's family, however, the sentence brought a small sense of closure. The pain of losing her would never go away, but at least justice had finally been served. Keith's lies, his manipulation, and his violence had all been exposed. And it was the truth, caught on camera, that ultimately brought him down. What do you think about Keith's chilling downfall? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a true crime twist like this one. More gripping stories coming soon.